People visit the small town of Lunenburg from all corners of the globe and for all sorts of reasons. There's Blue Nose, the colorful houses, the Christmas trees. But for a young man from Tanzania, a love of music is what drew him to Nova Scotia's South Shore. Earlier today, Afraz Mulji shared his story and talents with Main Street's Felecia Latour.
Hello everyone, my name is Afraz Mulji, I'm 17, and I am a musician.
And Afraz, you grew up in Tanzania, you went to boarding school in India, yet here we are sitting at an organ at St. John's Anglican Church in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, of all places. So I wonder what brought you here.
Well, I came here as part of my journey because I've always wanted to see the world. So during my travels, my parents and I thought it would be great if I came to Canada. And I chose Lunenburg because Lunenburg has such a great music program. There's the Boxwood Music Festival, there's Music Royale, and there's LAMP, the Lunenburg Academy. And all of them bring in top-class musicians and professionals, and they're all amazing in what they do. And I've had the great privilege of attending some of the master classes at LAMP. And Bert at LAMP has been very kind and enabled me to go to all the concerts and master classes, and Barbara at Music Royale has done the same for me with all the musicians she has. So basically, the musical influences that I've managed to get in Lunenburg have been incredible, and that's why I moved to Lunenburg.
And you were saying neither of your parents are musicians. You grew up kind of banging on pots and pans, but now your instruments have become a lot more sophisticated. So run me through all the instruments you play.
Well, I started playing tabla. I play piano, organ, any sort of synthesizer, Hammond organs, harpsichord and stuff like that. So anything with a keyboard, basically. And I play drums and world percussion, like djembe and congas and stuff like that.
And tell us what a tabla is.
A tabla is a kind of Indian drum, and it's like a pair of bongos, but they have much more resonance and depth of tone than a pair of congas, and everything that you do with your hands can be said with your mouth. For example, dha trakada din titakitagaddiganada tunna katta din trakada din titakitagaddiganada. All that I just said, like basically rhythmic solfege, can be translated into actual sounds on the drums, and that's how you learn tabla. There's no writing, there's no written notation. Everything that you learn is spoken to you, and it's a phenomenal oral tradition.
Well, it was splendid to hear you do that just now, and to think of you're borrowing from traditions in India and traditional African drumming, and yet here you are sitting at an old church organ and you're ready to bang away at the keys. What do you like about combining these different musical styles?
Well, each musical style has its own unique thing that it brings to the table. With African music, you have polyrhythmic complexity that is unparalleled anywhere else in the world. I mean, the layering, you could have 20 or 30 different parts going on at the same time, and they could all be improvised. And it creates a texture that's just incredible. And what Western music has done for harmony, African music has done for rhythm. And with Indian music, the melodic and rhythmic elements are extremely advanced. Harmonically, it's very, very stagnant, very simple. Usually they only use a drone. But the complexity and intricacy and beauty of the melodies in Indian music and the rhythmic sophistication of, drums like the tabla, the dhol, all these different Indian drums is absolutely phenomenal. So taking Western harmony, African rhythm and polyrhythmic ideas and Indian melody and putting them together as an example of a fusion piece gives it, as I like to think of it, the best of all worlds.
Not many 17-year-olds can say that they've played at music venues as coveted as Roy Thompson Hall in Toronto or Notre Dame in Paris. How did you end up there, and what were those experiences like for you in your musical career?
Well, Notre Dame, it was a dream of mine because I knew that they had a phenomenal pipe organ there, and I'd heard it before. And it just so happens that I was working with a very well-known organist in the south of France. So what happened is he had a business card that he'd given me, and he'd written basically that Afraz is allowed to play this organ, and he's a student of mine. So when I got to the cathedral in Paris, the staff were all like, "Oh, he's just a kid, whatever, whatever." I got moved from person to person to person. Then I thought, I have this business card. Maybe this means something to them. So I pulled it out and I said, look, here's somebody I worked with. And so then they were like, okay, maybe this kid knows a little something. So the organ technician takes me up to the organ loft. He pulls out a very quiet sound on the organ, and he says, do something. So I do something, and he looks amazed, and he's like, okay, you can play. And I said, really? So for about 15 minutes, I improvise, in the French romantic tradition, lots of color, lots of big chords and suspensions, and very, very colorful playing. And I play for about 15 minutes, and when I'm done, he goes over to the balcony and he tells the gathered audience that we have with us here a guest from Tanzania, is 15, and he improvised this organ piece for us. And I got a standing ovation. And that, I think, has been my musical highlight so far.
Well, how did that feel?
It was the best feeling in the world. It was a high like I've never experienced before, because that was an organ pedal being depressed.
Going crazy, just remembering how great the memory was.
Yeah, it was a high like I've never experienced before. To have an entire audience give you their approval, and to feel that energy coming from them, that's the best reward. To know that you affected these people positively, and you touched them, and you gave them something that they appreciated. That really is a wonderful feeling.
Well, it certainly seems like the fuel that just fueled the fire in your belly to practice music and love music. So what does the future hold for you? What is your dream?
I want to be able to perform my music and to compose and share everything that I have to offer with the world, really. Whatever medium that happens to be, whether it's live performance, recording in a studio, or composing. And music is a form of, it's a language, it's a way of communicating. And I find that music has the power to impact anyone, regardless of culture and where they were born and raised, language barriers and any of that. And the way the world is right now, with all the divisions, with all the barriers, with all the politics, with all this nonsense that's going on, I find that something like music has the power to bridge those divides. And so my goal is to be a person that can represent all these different cultures, given that I've grown up in so many different places, and I've experienced all these different cultures and lived these different cultures, be a representation of all these different schools of thought, all these different ideas, all these different perspectives, and give people something that makes them happy and connects them, as opposed to divides them and pushes them apart.
That's a really admirable thing to say. Like most 17-year-olds, I think you can't wait to graduate. So what lies ahead? Are you going to stay in Nova Scotia, or where will you go?
Well, Nova Scotia has certainly been very good to me, and all these different opportunities here. But my plan after high school really is to go wherever music takes me. And so far, as I can tell, Toronto seems like the best place to go, because it's got such a phenomenal music scene. And there's so many great musicians out there. And there's all these great colleges. There's Humber, there's, U of T. And so, I mean, being in an environment where I have, peers who are creating as well, and I have all these wonderful people that I can call mentors and who can aid me on my musical journey, and where there's music happening basically every night, that's where I want to be. And I'll probably be back to Nova Scotia, because I love Nova Scotia. I really do. It's a beautiful province, and I consider it one of my homes, really.
What a remarkable young man. That is 17-year-old musician Afraz Mulji. He was speaking with Main Street's Felecia Latour earlier today in Lunenburg, and you can check out just a little bonus performance, some footage of Afraz on Twitter. We've shared it at Main Street HFX.